Hi, Amy. How are you doing tonight?
Good. Hi, Paige. How are you?
I'm doing well. So this is actually the second time that I've seen Amy virtually, the third time I've seen her ever. I had the chance to meet her when I went to Ohio. I was teaching there in May, and I had the privilege to meet up with her. And when I was in the Netherlands, right? Like she surprised me. We Amy's been like my date for the last like I don't know 4 months every night working on this book. We're dating now, but I had called her or something. We were trying to get a hold of each other. We used Zoom because I was on Wi-Fi only, no data, and her three babies popped up.
Hi, Paige. Hi, Paige.
They were all like, "Wow." The camera phone. It was really fascinating to them. So anyway, but Amy and I basically worked for the last 6.5 months on my book. She's my ghostwriter. And I highly recommend a ghostwriter if you want to get a book out there because they help you get it done. I wanted to do a book. Let's see, I knew from the time I was 18 I was going to write a book. I've been wanting to do it actively since about 2012. It's 2019 now, so that just goes to show do what you know and then outsource the rest. That's all I can say. But Amy's been phenomenal, and so she has actually this whole video platform tonight was her idea. Actually, even though I've done this with many clients, she's not technically a client. Amy, like I said, is my ghostwriter, but we spent so much time together, like our weekly calls, and then at the end it was every night editing and re-editing and re-editing. And so as she's going through my principles and she's understanding them to emphasize them, it did a number on her life. And so Amy kind of turned into an unofficial client, and she actually got paid for it. Lucky her. She didn't pay me a dime. I paid her a lot of money though, but she's gone through some big changes, and it's really exciting when you actually see people's growth and change in action. And so she wanted to share her experience, and I'm really proud of her for even showing up on camera tonight because she's shy.
Yeah.
So I will let you take it from here, my dear.
Okay. So I'm a ghostwriter because I like to be behind the scenes. So here's Paige just pushing me out into the world again. That's okay. I can honestly say her book changed my life. That's why I suggested we do this, because it was through the process of building her book that everything changed, really. So the first time Paige and I talked, she was deciding on a ghostwriter. There were other options. And when we were gonna, talk about getting started, she had just gotten assaulted. And I said, Paige, take your time. We'll do this when you're ready. And she goes, yeah, let's just do this. I need to do this. And I was so touched by the fact that she could move forward even though this horrifying thing happened. And she had sent me the pictures of the damage done to her, and it was extensive. It wasn't like somebody pushed me. Um, and we talk about that in the book. And as soon as that happened, I knew I had to pay attention. Like, this woman knows what she's talking about. She's doing it. So listen up. So we got started, and it wasn't too far in. One of the nights we were working, my husband kept just talking at me, and I kept saying, hey, I'm on the phone with a client. This can wait. And Paige goes, are you somewhere where I can say something and he can't hear me? And I was like, you're good. And she goes, why do you hate yourself so much? And like, my first instinct was to be like, I don't hate myself. And she goes, well, you must, because you wouldn't let people talk to you like that if you didn't. And I had to think about that. It kind of forced me into this space where you analyze yourself. And I was like, well, gee, I must hate myself this much, because that was common. And there was a domestic violence issue in the past, and it had started to resurface at home. And I didn't have any self-love, and I didn't want to admit that either, because that's a really hard thing to be like, hey, I don't like myself over here. So once I started really paying attention, because we were writing this content and it changes you. You can't confront something that you're not willing to admit. So the first step for me was being like, yeah, I've never really liked myself. And it hurt to even say that out loud, but I knew it was true. And I'm sure that had a lot to do with gaining weight over the years and just everything culminating into this big, I hate my life, right? And I don't know where to go from here because it's just all so bad. So then I left on April 15th. There were so many threats, so many lies. Physical abuse was starting again. Not that it was just starting again. It was just that I was sick of hiding it. You know, I'm sick of acting like this isn't what it is. So we're getting to the place where it's push time, and I left on April 15th. And so since February 15th, actually, I've lost 71 pounds. 55 of that would be since I left on April 15th. And I know that day because it was tax day, and it happened to be the day I left, so it's like a good remembering day. But, and it goes on and on. Like, so there's been dreams I had that were getting sabotaged through the relationship. You know, my domain was lost that I've been building for all this time, and I had just put the website up and gone. So I called, and they're like, it's going to be $3,100. And I'm like, yeah, no, that's not happening. And I changed the name and built it again. We're building the publishing house for self-publishing. So 2 businesses started, 55 pounds lost, a marriage ending, which is obviously a sad thing, but it's not when you're leaving something you shouldn't have been in at that time for that long. So I had told Paige, I want to tell the world this book changed me. You know, the self-love, surrender, non-resistance. Non-resistance is what did it, Paige. Because I said to Paige, I said, oh my gosh, we have to, how do I set boundaries without saying, I need to set some boundaries with you, which seems contrite and strange. And I had been feeling like I just needed to shut my mouth for a while, but I'm feisty, so that wasn't such an easy thing. She goes, the way you set the boundary is by not reacting, non-resistance, remember, be like water. And I thought, I can do this. So as things were coming out me verbally and threats, things that weren't even true about me, and I knew they weren't true, but I used to justify that. That's not true. And she goes, why do you have to say it's not true? You know it's not true. He knows it's not true. Just don't even respond. So I started responding. If I responded with, you know, I'm going to think about that. We can talk about that later. I would like some time to think about that. We never talked about it later, not one time. But it wasn't giving him the response anymore. And I feel like that partially started the landslide of out the door, because then the escalation of behaviors and just more verbal abuse started due to my non-resistance. But again, even though some of those things are really hard, Paige, they were worth it.
Yeah, Amy's made a lot of big changes, like in a short period of time. So that's the thing. When you're ready to change, it's you do it. You know, if you're not ready, it's just going to be an even bigger mess. But when you're really ready, it happens. And yeah, I remember that first call. I was actually at the doctor's office, and my phone rang, and I'm like, shit, it's 11 a.m. I have a call with Amy. And my hair was still just completely, I mean, I literally, I hadn't showered, I hadn't slept. I knew that I had to take police photos still, and so I couldn't touch myself. I had to let them take photos of me as I was. And she called, and I was like, let me just tell you what happened. And I remember her her first response was, wow, you must really have something important to say if the opposition is trying that hard to bring you down. And that was kind of my instinct too. Like, I've worked really hard to get to this point, and that's the whole kind of thing behind change, is the harder you work to make those changes, the shadow side of you attracts things to try and bring you down. And I am by no means taking responsibility for what the assailant did, but I will take responsibility for the fact that I still identified with a little piece of me that was like, are you sure you're ready to be that great? And when the assault happened, that was the question I had to ask myself. Are you going to let this take you down, or are you going to keep moving forward? And I know that energy doesn't discriminate. We're either going forwards or we're going backwards. There is no break. There is no pause on the energetic level. We're either changing and growing, or we are going backwards. And so I didn't really have an option. If I wanted to continue healing and growing, I knew I needed to move forward, and that's what we did. And so I had to lead by example. And then with Amy, it was just really interesting to hear her along the way. And there were times when, you know, she would say, God, I feel like that just hit me right in the gut, what you just said. Like, there were things, I wasn't talking to her, I was just speaking about the principle and offering examples. And she would just be like, oh my God, that hurts. That doesn't feel good to hear.
There weren't times. It was like all the time. It was all the time.
Well, and the truth is very painful. You know what I mean? When you're confronting parts of yourself that you know aren't working. And it takes courage to do that, you know, whether you want to get out of a 20-year career, a 20-year marriage, or just, you know, have more peace of mind. Anytime you go to confront the old you, it's uncomfortable. And, you know, I meditate and I pray every day, and I ask in my prayer, I'm like, may you be instrumental in dissolving any illusions that no longer serve me. Because a lot of times we are an illusion and we don't even know it. Like, we lie to ourselves constantly. This is okay. This is okay. This is okay. No, it's not okay. But it takes a lot of courage to kind of move yourself out of a situation, take it apart, examine it, and go, is it really okay? Is it really working? And Amy, I applaud her courage for, instead of saying, I'm sorry, Paige, I can't write your book anymore, which most people I think would have done. Most people would have bailed on the project. It would have been too confronting. They would have said, I'm giving you your money back. I'm not doing this. And I deal with that a lot on the client level. People get really good at like, yes, I'm so ready to make changes. And then when it really boils down to it, it's like jumping out of an airplane. They're like, fuck, no. I'm not doing it, you know? And so, no, it's true. And that's why I wanted to break down my book the way I did, so people could understand that, like, for example, the ego, reality is subjective. What we think is true oftentimes is very subjective and completely changeable, completely changeable. And you're not locked. You're never completely locked into anything in your life at all. And like Amy had said many times, you know, she's like, and we would have, trust me, there'd be times we'd be trying to work on my book, and she would just be like, I don't understand. Why did it fail? Why did I fail? And like, she would just, and it'd become an Amy talk that night. Which is fine, you know, and I'd end up talking to Amy off the ledge about, you know, you didn't do anything wrong. The situation just ran its course. Now you see differently, and it's time to move on. You didn't do anything wrong. You did your best. And she was married to a narcissist, and narcissists are extremely predatory. They're very parasitic. They prey on other people psychologically, emotionally. They don't meet their own needs independent of other people. And that's a really tough one when you're dealing with a narcissist, because your brain is telling you, if I just do it right, they'll get it. No, they won't. No, they won't. Like, they're hardwired very differently than the rest of us. And
well, in all fairness, just for the audience to know, I did not know this until it was done, and psychologists that knew us both were sending me videos, and That was another place I felt read, like, oh my gosh, how do these videos, these books know everything that was said and done in our relationship? And that's when I had to admit that to myself. I didn't see it because I didn't know what it was. But through this project, I mean, once you open your eyes, you either have to dig your own hole and crawl in it to ignore the information that comes to you, or you say, okay, that's what it is, I'm going to change. And for me, that was a no-brainer because, gosh darn it, I'm sick of life sucking. Like, you only get one, you know?
No,
So,
it's true. And that's the thing. I mean, you do only get one. It's not like, things are going to get better on their own. And so many people, that's how they live their lives. They're like, I'll just wait and see. Okay, if your habits that you have integrated to this point in time have not delivered the results you're looking for, why the fuck would you spend more time waiting and seeing if the same set of habits are going to yield a different outcome? Because they're not. This isn't brain surgery. This is just very basic. Patterns don't lie. It's very predictable. So, and again, when it comes to making a shift, it's hard because you're hardwired to a reality you've created. And it can be miserable and it can be ugly. But if that's all you know, you're like a dog trapped in a cage. That's what you know. And it is scary. And so I commend Amy big time for making those changes because it went against her religious beliefs. She comes from a set of standards where, you're the good wife, you're the good mother, you do everything for your family. Why did it fail? That's a really hard thing to reconcile. And she's been working through it.
well, and what's amazing too is, so I let go of these old paradigms, and it was hard. There's times they try to sneak back in your head and you're like, wait a minute, am I wrong? Did I make a mistake? You wonder if the work is going to be worth it. It's challenging every moment of every day. So after a while though, it becomes second nature. I used to have to struggle for every job I got. I felt like I had to beat everybody and be the best. And I'm different as a ghostwriter because I let the story tell me how it wants to be told. So Paige's book is Paige's voice, okay? I pretty much took every interview and wrote every word she had. I just added a few things here and there because she asked me to, but I felt like it was true to her message, and I'm still learning from it. I'm still rereading it and going, oh, I have to work harder on this point, and yes, keep this right at the forefront. So it's not work that ends, but that's the beauty of it because you get better at the work. And so now I'm getting so many jobs that I'm like, whoa, how am I going to get all this done? But it's a really good place to be because I'm raising the children and not knowing that I don't have to worry about whether the bill's getting paid. I just have to wait for the check to come in is a totally different place than I've ever been. And I can just kind of sit back and do the work. Obviously, you can't just expect it to come in on its own. I have to do the work. But it's exciting because I've let go of so many areas. I'm not worried anymore.
Well, and also, it's interesting that you bring that up because Amy is one of the classic examples who is conditioned to think, I can't make it on my own.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Like she'd never fully been on her own. She'd always relied on someone else to help pay the bills. And now she's on her own. And guess what she's doing? She's paying the bills just fine. Right? And that's another paradigm people get locked in. Like I have to live by these set of rules in order to survive or get by. Bullshit, you do.
Well, and the other thing, Paige, and I'm just going to say this for other women. I was a serial monogamist, or monogamist, whatever. I would go into another relationship because I was scared to be alone, right? Not because that was the right person or a good fit for me, but there was a part of me that felt like I needed to be loved, and nobody could love me the way I needed to be loved because I didn't love myself. I learned that through doing this book with you, and I had to confront that, right? So now I'm alone, and I'm like, wow, I should have done this a long time ago. I really like being alone. And here's the thing, it's not loneliness. I don't like to say single. I'm still technically married. You know, the divorce is in the works. And single also feels to me like I'm looking, and I'm not. I'm just really happy to be doing it on my own and realizing I can. And I think
Well,
there's a lot of women that jump from relationship to relationship because they want that validation from a man. And I was one of them, so I'm not judging. I'm just saying, to be the person that completes yourself for the first time in your life. I'm 33 years old, and I can honestly say I'm happier than I've ever been by myself. I didn't see that ever happening. So that's something that might be embarrassing to admit publicly, but at the same time, it makes me feel really strong.
well, you found your autonomy and your independence, and that's beautiful.
It really is. And I thank you for that, Paige, because you were my teacher and I'm still learning from you. And I enjoy your friendship. And when it comes to people, I'm going to do the sales pitch for you. You don't even have to worry about it, Paige. Okay, I got this. I was so stuck in my ways, and working with you on your book has helped change all of it, right? I don't even know not that I don't know who I am, I'm discovering who I truly was under all the bullcrap layers of, you peel back the onion peel and you take away the defenses, and all of a sudden you're like, wait a minute, now I have to figure out what this definition is. And it's a really beautiful process. So when it comes to the book, absolutely get it. And if you apply it and you integrate everything she puts in there, you might have to read it a couple times to let it sink in. It's worth it. It'll change you. But you have to do the work, right? And then as a coach and just a human being, I appreciate you on so many levels because you do this work. I've seen you do work too, and we don't have to necessarily talk about that. But the struggles don't end once you are doing the work. Sometimes it almost makes them reappear, right? And Paige has tackled all of it head on, while traveling, while making this book and coming up with new programs and still working with her clients. And Paige is the queen of boundaries. I'm just telling you, don't mess with her wrong or you'll be out. And I'm pretty sure there's people that will give themselves as references when they hear that, but it's because she appreciates herself, and that gives me strength. When she has something that she confronts head on, I go, I should try that more. And it's not been ill received because you don't do it without kindness, but it's just your truth, your honesty. And then people have conformed and they're kind about it and they almost appreciate you more. So that was another huge building block that you gave me that I never had on my own. I'd be like, oh, I'm so sorry I was that. And she would tell me, stop saying sorry.
Yeah, stop apologizing. It's okay. Like if her babies needed something and she was late to a call or whatever, she's like, I'm so sorry. And I'd be like, oh my God, stop apologizing for the fact that you're a human being right now. Like, it's fine. Like, I'm not expecting perfection. We're good. Yeah, because that every time you apologize unnecessarily, it's like, here's some more of my self-worth. Just take it. And the reality is we all are imperfect. We all have things that come up. And when you're doing your best, and that shows through. You don't have to apologize for things that are out of your control. It's like I'm definitely at this place right now where I just wrote a book. I just published a book and it's here. And the day I got it in the mail, I actually wasn't excited. I felt extremely defeated. It was weird. It was almost like buyer's remorse. That's the best thing I could compare it to, because it was like, oh fuck, now what? I felt like a new mom who had just delivered an alien and they're like, what do I do with this baby? Like, oh my gosh, now what do I do? Now it's here and it's real. And it was kind of like that. It was like, I don't know what to do with myself now. Like I had a formula, I had a method, and that's all gone out the window. I don't know how to, I don't know how to maneuver now. And logistically, yeah, there's all kinds of ways to maneuver, but in the process, I have just felt completely lost. It's been very interesting how creating this new level of my work, it didn't add to my identity. All it did was completely challenge it. It just completely challenged my identity. And I'm at this kind of impasse where I just feel really lost. And I'm okay with that. You know, I allowed myself to be in the defeat for a few days, because that's where I was, and I don't do denial well. So I was in defeat. And I did catch myself wanting to kind of fix it quickly, only to recognize that there is no quick fix. And I need to, more than anything, accept the fact that like this is a new place in my life. I don't know how to maneuver like clockwork. It's not like my yoga practice that I have under my belt and I just know it like the back of my hand. This is new territory. I need to let myself be vulnerable. I need to let myself be lost and surrender to that. I mean, I know the rules. My book is not about my principles. These are not my principles. These are universal principles that I am breaking down for people to apply tangibly. And so, you know, over the last few days, I had a talk with myself. I was like, you need to just go back to the basics. You don't know. So be in the unknown and surrender to that. Just stay there. So it's not like the work changes. We grow and then we have a new level at which we work. But if you understand the rules, you know, the game might get more complicated as life goes along, but the rules never change. And that's why I really wanted to bring this book to fruition for people, so you could see, like, you know, we're all made of the same stuff. We're all bound by the same natural laws. Here it is, you know. And if you you know, do find yourself at an impasse, go back to the basics, go back to the beginning. Okay, what resonates the most right now? Which tool can I apply to help me get through this? You know, am I in a situation where I'm resisting? Am I in a situation where I'm punishing myself? Am I in a situation where I feel lost? Am I in a situation where you know, I'm getting caught up in my story? So you can ask yourself these questions and then just kind of know which way to direct yourself. But yeah, I mean, the game doesn't change. It gets a little more complicated as you go throughout your life, even if you get really good at the tools, which I consider myself quite the little queen, but I still trip up. And your phone is beeping, Amy. That's okay.
I'm sorry. I'm getting text messages. I'm ignoring them, but
I'm just being a brat. No, it's fine. I'm on my laptop, which I actually don't like the fuzziness of the frame, but I can't record on another device. So here we are. But anyway, you know, the principles, they're universal. They don't change. There was a quote. I didn't see the movie The 10 Commandments. I just know the quote: you can't break the law, you can only be broken against it. And I always keep that in mind. Like, as long as you go back to the rules and you just go, okay, where am I stuck? How do I get out? Then you can maneuver. Because most people really don't go after what they want or create vision because either A, they don't think they have anything to offer, or B, they don't know how. And the reality is that there are ways through, and the truth is everyone has something to offer. So yeah, I did not anticipate that I would be impacting my ghostwriter so much, though.
no, but I really appreciate it. And one of the byproduct page, so one of the ghostwriters I've added to my agency for ghostwriters, she made a comment today through email about, I would love to make videos, but I don't feel like I'm pretty enough. And I kind of like low-key went off on her. I'm like, no, you have value and it shouldn't matter what you look like. You should share that with the world. And then she didn't answer right away. So I like panicked a little bit. And I'm like, I meant that as a pep talk. I hope you didn't take it any other way. And she's like, no, that's exactly how I took it. And thank you so much. But I think as women, I can't speak for men, so I'm not going to try. But as a woman, we have this ideal that's fed to us. You have to have this body type, this hair, you know, you have to be this way to have this value. And as I'm finding myself in stronger places, I want to build everybody up around me. I'm like, no, don't go there. Think like this because you do have value and you are worth it. And, you know, we talk about the ego in the book, right? How it just tries to sabotage us at every turn. And I think it's funny because once you know that, it starts going and you're like, not today, Buster. And then you just start quieting that voice. And when all the principles start working together, it's almost, so you were talking about the levels, you know, you struggle. I was thinking about video games. I personally don't play them, but you level up and then the battles get harder and you keep leveling up till you're stronger to meet the battle, right? And it's interesting to watch how other people and yourself grow through exercising those things, you know. And we talk in real life instances in the book, right? We try.
You muted yourself, Amy. That's a Mercury retrograde clip right there. You didn't even touch the phone. Sorry, go back.
I'm so sorry. We we talked in the book. We use a lot of real life application examples, so that way it's not something that can't be understood by the reader. So don't think that it's all scientific or high lofty language. We did it on purpose using relationships. Babies, I mean, it doesn't get it's easier than understanding a baby. They fall, they get up, right? We talk about relationships, weight loss, work, money. Money is a big one. So it's all in there.
Money doesn't discriminate. I'm sorry. I know y'all think it does. It doesn't. Money could care less who it goes to.
And once I kick that to the curb, I've more than doubled last year and it's only July. So I'm going to keep applying that principle.
Yeah, I'm really proud of Amy. I'm really proud of her. And even though she was an unofficial client, again, like, who knows whose hands this book will end up in and will inspire. And so that was kind of the point. I mean, I've been through so much. And when I say that I was addicted to my own despair, I mean that. Like, I lived on pain. I indulged it. So to come away from that, like, and to be where I'm at now, it's been a rough lifetime. It's not been, you know, just a few years. It started when I was young. So but yeah, everything that I talk about, I have integrated and experienced and experimented with firsthand. None of this is just, you know, arbitrary information that I'm passing along because it sounds good. None of it. It's all been tried and tested. And, you know, habits create. So what are your habits? What are you creating? Do you like what you're creating? If not, let's break down your habits. What needs to change in your life? And most often it's things you don't notice. And that's actually why people hire coaches, not because you know, they have the means necessarily, but people get really tired of being stuck and they need someone to be their what's that term called, Amy? Amy's my term girl.
And then she puts me on the spot and it all goes.
What's that called when someone, like, blind spot, someone to be your blind spot. Yeah. So it's someone to be your blind spot to help you get out of your way. So they're, you know, the things that you just can't see on your own. And I have blind spots too. So, which is why I have people who help me. And, you know, that's why we do it. And I was talking to someone the other day who's, like, interested, but of course on the fence. And this is probably one of the most classic things I hear. I'm going to call you once my problems are gone. Once I'm out of debt, then we'll talk. And I said to him, I was like, so if you were drowning in quicksand, you would wait to ask for help once you finally made it to dry, solid land? And he goes, well, when you put it that way, I sound really stupid.
Well, and one of the things you're great at, Paige, is asking questions that nobody wants to answer, by the way. This girl asked me some questions where I was like, okay. But it makes you confront the dark spots, the blind spots. And, you know, that goes back to what I mentioned earlier. Once you confront it, you have to make a choice. There's no more inaction or excuses. This is what it is. You're either going right or left. You can no longer just be like, da, 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 da. I don't see that. It's not fair. So, you know, on the coaching level, having somebody who's not afraid to ask those questions, Paige isn't afraid. Paige is not afraid.
Well, and the other thing that, like, a big theme for me is authenticity, because when we live a life of lies or denial, it's like we have these constant projections we have to manage and keep up with. That's heavy.
It's very heavy.
You're living a lie and you're in denial about what's going on in your life. You're constantly carrying that baggage around with you. When you live authentically, the only thing you're in charge of or responsible for is how you are in that moment, period. You're not responsible for anything else.
And people that are living a lie, whether they'll admit it openly or not, I can admit it now. We're lying to the people around us. Oh, everything's fine. It's great. I'm okay. Those are all lies. And it doesn't matter what level you're covering up. There's something freeing about saying, okay, this is crap. Now what? Like,
yeah.
This is what it is. So now what do I do with it? You know?
Well, you can't move into a space of freedom from a place of denial. It doesn't work. You have to take ownership for where you're at and acknowledge the step you're standing on, and then you move. But if you try to pretend that where you're at is not where you're at, then you're not going anywhere. And if anything, what you're avoiding is just trailing you.
So Paige, what do you think in your experience, because you have way longer on the principles than I do, but what do you think the hardest principle for the readers is going to be?
I guess it'd be a tie between change and self-love. You know, because change is so miserably uncomfortable and everybody wants things to get better from the frame of reference they live in. I don't want to do anything to take a risk. I don't want to risk my identity, my marriage, my relationship, my job, my security. They don't want to risk anything, but I want this to get better. I don't want to change my habits, but I want the outcome to change. Like it's a constant, you know. That one is a really big one. And then the other one that's probably a little more slippery would be self-love. People don't see that how much they don't love themselves, because it's not like you go and hug yourself and go, oh, I love myself. That's not what I mean when I say self-love. Self-love is the ability to recognize what you would perceive as a flaw and go, that's me and I love it. Or to make a mistake and go, I did that. Yep, I did that. But you know what? I love me anyway. I did my best. Or like what I've been experiencing lately, you know, this is a very candid moment for me to admit, but like with the assault came a lot of psychological damage, emotional turmoil. I brought up it and I lost a lot of time and I lost a lot of money as a result of this. Like a lot of financial investment has gone into dealing with the situation. And I really caught myself, that was part of the defeat I think I felt with my book coming out, was I caught myself feeling like I should be in a better place right now. And yet it's like, because I'm in civil litigation right now with the assailant, I'm looking at the bills going, I should have totally taken care of that by now. When the reality is, I'm not the one who caused it. So like I was punishing myself for not remedying a situation that I didn't even cause. And that's another form of like self-punishment versus self-love. It's like, wait a minute though. Like, what is mine to control? What is yours to control? If it's out of your control, then why are you beating yourself up for not being able to take care of it? It's not in your control. So punishing yourself is not going to be helpful. All you can do is manage what's in your realm of control in that moment and move accordingly. But to beat yourself up over something that you didn't do, you have no control over. Like if someone from your past hates you and there's nothing you can do about that, then to hate yourself as a result doesn't help the situation, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's on them. Just like this guy, he did a lot of damage. I mean, he's really at a major karmic awakening in his life right now, but that's on him. Like, my job is to just step out of the way, let the attorneys do their part so that I can get restitution and move on. But to assume that I'm somehow supposed to clean up my regular, day-to-day life plus his, like, wait a minute, and I had to really step back and pause and go, why am I being so mean to myself based on the fact that, like, I'm not doing better financially? Motherfucker, beat me up. Like, I'm sorry. You know what I mean? A lot of my focus has gone into healing from that, as well as writing this book. So yeah, my finances for the first quarter of this year took a hit. They just did. It is what it is. But for me to hold myself hostage for that is ridiculous. Absolutely ridiculous. So not what I planned for 2019 by any means. What I got dealt, get to deal with it. So self-love and the practice of self-love, it's a lot more slippery, and most people they don't recognize it. Or, like, I was talking to a client about ahimsa, which means nonviolence, and she's like, yeah, I'm not violent towards myself. And then she reads the chapter and she's like, oh my gosh, I'm so mean to myself. Like, there's so much we don't see, in terms of how we treat ourselves. And boundaries is a huge way to practice self-love. So is asking for respect. And the moment you think you have to compromise for another person, you have just given up a piece of your soul to someone else that doesn't belong to them. You don't owe them anything. So I would say change and self-love are definitely going to be the two hardest, but the self-love chapter was by far my favorite to write. I really enjoyed writing that chapter. I didn't write it, actually. She wrote it, but
That's not fair, though. You did write it. It's her content. I just typed it. So the way I did her book, her interviews are a whole notebook, and I used her words completely and then just fluffed it up.
Well, and she did a phenomenal job. I'm really, really happy that I chose Amy. Obviously chose her not just because we clicked in the interview process, but there was some bigger like meant to be's behind it. And so I'm really grateful that she's come into my life, and that she's also, she mentioned doing her publishing company when we first got together, and now she's actually building that.
Tell them why, Paige. Paige challenged me. She's like, what are you waiting for? So I have to give a lot of love back to Paige.
Well, yeah, no, that's true though. There's a lot of things we assume it's like what we beat ourselves up for not being in our control. On the flip side, we assume it's too much and we can't control it, when actually it's totally available to do something about in that moment.
Yeah.
So yeah, the things that she thought that she was like gonna have to wait on, I was like, no, you just go get online and just type it in and get it done, girl. It's not a problem.
And that's what she did.
Go down to Secretary of State, file that. You're good. You're fine. It's yours. You don't have to wait on anybody. But yeah, she really wanted to do that, and we talked about the strategy. I learned from my publishing company that did my book. I learned their strategy, and I just handed it right over to Amy, like, you can do this too, and she's doing it. And that was her dream, to not just be a ghostwriter, but have a publishing company, and she's doing it now.
Except for I don't have Paige's book. That's what you get when you wait.
She can have the next one.
Yeah.
She can have the next one. So, is there anything else you want to say, Amy, before we close?
I think I'm good.
All right, dear. Well, thank you for actually, initiating this, and now that everyone gets to meet you.
I know that gives me a little bit of anxiety, but that's okay.
No, you're fabulous, dear. So, anyway, I hope that you have a wonderful night, everyone, and you enjoyed our conversation.
All right. Thanks. Bye, Paige.
Bye.